And welcome into our overtime segment here at SportsSource.tv. So maybe we're talking, we're chatting. All right, appreciate you joining us. We had a long discussion today on the show. We had to race through it. It's what you have to do when you're on television. You only get an hour. But we tried to race through some of the accusations and allegations that are out there in this lawsuit. Which ones seem frivolous on the surface? You know, Little John, Peyton Manning. Which ones seem to have sort of a blurry part to them? All right, you've got two higher ups that are in this suit. Both of them left, disgruntled perhaps, so that's murky. Then you got some stuff like a timeline to Vaughn Pearson, which is very odd. You can go back and look at segments 4, 5, and 6 to see more of this. But when you look at this case, I don't know how many people out there looked at it and thought, well, they're going to have to prove all this stuff. Does it change your thinking at all with the fact that this is a civil case standard? It's a federal lawsuit, but it's a civil case. So it's only preponderance of evidence. See, I don't know how many people realize that, no, all you got to do is prove more likely than not. And the problem is, if you could prove the Kurt Magid thing and that timeline for Vaughn Pearson, if you prove those two things, you're on your way to winning the lawsuit, I think. Well, and I mean the attorneys for the plaintiffs.
Here's the problem. The lawsuit is about culture of the sexual assault, right? The society in general, culture is getting worse towards how they handle sexual assault. It's more acceptable, it's more accessible. Plus, the culture of college athletics is more about winning than ever before. So if you have to prove 51% that that's true, that's worrisome, and that's why I think we were talking about most of us saying just pay and make this thing go away before it just gets worse and worse.
As long as the numbers within reason, and I'm talking not my reason, University of Tennessee reason, a school that's getting a $25 million check just from the SEC network, if I could make it go away, I think I would.
I would have already made it gone away.
Yeah, see, go ahead.
I was about to say, I actually think that Vaughn Pearson may be more worrisome to me than Kurt Magid. You could paint Kurt Magid's situation as a mad guy
defending
his friend.
His roommate.
Yep.
Vaughn Pearson goes to everybody from the top of the athletic department on down, gets extra protection. So even though I think Kurt Magid is bad, if that happened, as it happened allegedly, I think Vaughn Pearson could be worse in proving this case, because you can always put Kurt Magid on an island and say hot-tempered, defending his friend, etc. Vaughn Pearson, that was done by your administration and your staff.
And the interesting thing is the Magid deal, in the Williams-Johnson trial, it's going to come out that he said he hit Bowles. And Bowles, in his testimony, said that he was hit by Magid. A lot of people over there at UT say, no, there was never a hit. I also heard that he tried to hit him, but Bowles blocked it or something. I'm like, okay, I don't see the difference there. And then you have, maybe if it was Magid hitting me, I would feel it. But then you have his lawyer coming out and saying it's a complete lie. He never hit anybody. That story is all over the damn map.
Right, and Kurt Magid at the Combine declining to address the allegation. He did defend Tennessee's culture, but the allegation that Dre Bowles made and signed in the affidavit, he did not address this week.
And what I would love is not love, it's a relative term, but for the university or the athletic department side, that side of the defense has come out and say, look, well, this also goes on from a university side of if they do allow a kid who's going through some legal trouble,
yes,
to allow him to come in and be able to take some courses and finish an exam, even though he's going through some legal trouble. If they have that, if they can find that, they need to run that out to show, look, it's not, we do this for other students, right, not just student athletes.
Well, and again, we haven't seen UT's defense, and that's what when that comes out mid-March, I'm told 2 to 3 weeks, barring any new amendments. When they amended the case this week, that pushed Tennessee's defense back by a week. 2 to 3 weeks, mid-March, we'll get Tennessee's defense. We'll be able to look at it, and we'll break it down in these same ways. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they go about this, because typically in these kind of cases, you discredit the witness, or you discredit the people who are making the claims. Tim Rogers, I bet he was a grump. Jenny Wright, she's left and she's disgruntled because we fired her. The plaintiffs, there was alcohol involved. You know that's going to be alcohol, drinking, party,
possibly
college.
Some text beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be discrediting though. And yes, part of it, let's say that's true. I don't know. We don't know which of these are true and which ones weren't. My guess is it's not all true and it's not all false. That's my guess. Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
There's so much in there on one side and the other. There's a lot of information there.
Well, here's what I was going to say. Simply, if the defense for UT is, they were drinking and she was asking for it.
No.
I don't know. That speaks to why women don't come forward.
Yeah, that's not your defense, I hope.
Yeah, the problem is it's just, there is no way to win on this issue. The accused doesn't want to come, the alleged victim doesn't want to come forward because there's blowback, and there is. The person who's accused, hell, once you're accused, you're guilty. There's no way to get that. You can't scrub Google and get that taken off. Yeah. It is just a lose-lose. And I hate for people who sit there and say, it's just these women who are trying to bring down UT athletes. And then there's that other group that says UT athletes are just running the show over here, doing their whole thing. They're just raping and pillaging everyone. I don't like those two. I never like extremes. Not a big fan of extremes.
And talking of extremes, what about the extremes between the Dre Bowles version of what happened with Butch Jones and the Butch Jones version of what happened and what was said? I think that really is going to be, how do you prove that one way or the other?
Well, I'll say something that you asked Chuck about during the show, and you said, could that cost Butch Jones his career? If the negative version, and negative being negative towards Butch Jones
meaning
version,
it's true.
Meaning it's true, comes out, I almost don't see how you can let him continue to be the coach at the University of Tennessee.
No, because the Butch Jones version is, hey, almost bent over backwards trying to help this kid. We knew it was a difficult situation. We even worked with him to get him enrolled in another school.
But if you looked at him and you say you betrayed your team.
You're a traitor.
And you had a woman who, at this point in time, it's still allegedly, but was allegedly raped. My gosh, in 2016, I just don't see how you survived that.
Well, and if that's the case as well, if Dre Bowles' story is true, that would also mean that Butch Jones lied to the administration, because Dave Hart stood by very strongly Butch Jones.
Everybody over there believes Butch Jones. Yes. I've not talked to anyone, from former players to current people in the athletic department, current people in the administration. They believe Butch Jones.
I want to believe Butch Jones.
And Mike made a good point, though. We've all said things in the heat of a moment, stupid, and gone back, and it could be that, but I don't even see that.
What I was told, it's a chance it was maybe a teammate that said that to Bowles. It was not the coach.
Well,
and it has been twisted around to where the attorneys come out with it, and it's the coach saying it when it wasn't.
Well, I have no doubt that the attorneys might have, here's what he said. Now let's twist it around and make it fit.
And see, the amendment part is what makes me say you really need to fight this, because that is an attack on a character, an attack on what is true and what is not true.
But here, let's get into that. The Butch Jones thing. Everybody now says, all right, he's got to fight to clear his name. You can't prove that one way or the other. Conversation between two people, unless there was surveillance video with audio.
Well,
wait.
Okay.
You cannot prove it one way or the other. So let's say you fight for 3 years and you win the case. It's still out there. Yeah. Now, I think if you settled, it's he said, it goes away. I think it goes away. Basically, I wouldn't worry about it if you fight it in court. I wouldn't worry about it enough to fight it in court is what I'm getting at. Because I think that it's one guy saying one thing. If nobody else buys it,
here's one thing I would try and chip away at if I was UT and Butch Jones. It's my understanding that Bowles said this was made in a face-to-face conversation, and then there were 2 subsequent phone calls where Butch Jones tried to call the player to apologize, but he didn't take the phone calls. All right, do those 2 phone calls, and it's not going to prove it one way or the other, but does that show up on some kind of cell phone record? Does it show up that even 2 phone calls were made? You have to try and chip away. If it does show up,
at least trust me.
All of this is why I say settle, because they're going to put their defense out, and we're going. You know what we're going to do? We're going to talk more about it. So if they want the story to go away, that's why I'm settle as quickly as you can. So all of this conversation exits, because even if you're defending yourself, the conversation's still there, and around the nation, do they believe you?
No,
and that's part of the reason why I thought it was kind of silly to throw players out there and stuff. If you say all the right things, you're not going to hear it. It's not going to make national news. No one. They expect the quarterback, Josh Dobbs, to come out and say, "Yeah, it sucks here." Yeah. No, they're not going to run that on ESPN,
right?
Unless you screw up. So it's the same thing when you're going through this proving, I never said this. You think an Alabama fan's going to say, you know what? I now believe Butch Jones. No. If you put this case, and that's the one thing that drives me crazy about this. If this were Alabama, exact same stuff at Alabama. Everyone here screaming that it's not fair would be screaming, get the torches, burn them alive. I mean, that's the way it would go.
Yeah.
So if you put yourself in the minds of everybody else out there, you're not going to win. I'm a Patriots fan. Everybody said Brady was guilty. All the evidence, one by one, since then has said, oh, no, and Goodell lied about the testimony and everything else. No one cares. They hate Brady. Doesn't matter. They don't want to hear it. Patriots fans are all going, but look at the record. Don't care. That's where Tennessee is right now. And that's the thing with the Peyton Manning stuff. Everybody was saying, why aren't they knocking Jamie Outright? Didn't fit the narrative. We got a blemish on the Golden Boy. That's the narrative.
Yeah, totally agree. And you've got people now, I don't want to take this into a Peyton Manning conversation, but you've got people now on the internet talking about Manning as a sexual predator.
God.
Over something that he did when he was 20 years old. And that's
Which
the
may have still been a mooning,
craziness that you get into with stuff like that. That's the reason I don't think you can win.
And so
the hard part of all of this,
even if you win, you can't win.
This is why I'm sitting over here laughing, why I enjoy being on this side of it now. The decisions of 18 to 21-year-olds on a daily basis is what's driving all of this. And them, I know, some of them don't even know the ramifications of if they go and give a testimony, what that really means if they lie. Or if they, so we sit here and all these guys are relying on the evidence or the fact or the story that a player's giving them. That's what's scary because we don't know. They don't know. They might be trusting the player, but he's in the back just completely lying about what's going on because he's scared. He don't know what to do or what not to do.
And I think a difficult part for the teammates of Kurt Magid and Dre Bowles. Now, Kurt was a better player on the field, but ask teammates about those two guys. They rave about both of those guys and their characters. So I think it's difficult for people to even grasp what's happened with this part of the story this week because as far as people, they think highly of both of them.
Because we even talked about it with Butch's from his dad was a police officer. Well, so is Dre Bowles' dad is a police officer. You know, so you can't, and back to your point about Alabama, you can't just pick and choose what you want to believe. And it's
but we do.
Yeah, and for people that sit here and talk about the Peyton Manning stuff, those are the people you just ignore and just don't even go look at. It's ridiculous.
Kurt Magid. I can be very sympathetic with Kurt Magid. It didn't happen a year after it happened. It was in the heat of that moment, and this is your best friend and your roommate. I can be really sympathetic with Kurt Magid. He was wrong, but I can still see where that one happened.
He's wrong if he did it.
If he did it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Mark, I'm going to let you finish up because we were talking during the show off camera, and you mentioned, we were talking about 18-year-old kids there, but you were also talking about some of these guys. They've been coddled their entire lives because they're great athletes, and they don't know where the boundaries are. They think they can get away with stuff because they always have.
Yeah, I mean, there's been guys on campus that have come with a reading level of below high school, but yet they've gotten to college. And, you know, it starts with that because these guys because they can score a lot of points on the court or they can get a bunch of touchdowns or a bunch of tackles, there are times where people just let them get through and cut corners. And so human nature is, just like it for any of us in our workforce, if you were allowed to cut a corner and it was acceptable, all of a sudden that corner gets cut more and more. And I think that's what happens sometimes with athletes is they get to a place and they're allowed to do some things in high school, and then they expect that level, and that line just keeps getting further and further out that they're trying to cross. And I'm not saying that's that in this case by any means, but that's just the reality of what I've seen when it comes to student athletes.
All right. Thanks to all these guys. We got Chuck the Fighter, and the rest of us, we're settlers. That's why we settle. We're settlers. Thanks
for a fertile spring.
That's right. Now, go make your own clothes, Bob.
I'll get my own haircut.
We'll see you. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 o'clock on WATE. And again, just to reiterate, today's show was all about what we know of the case. That is the plaintiff's side. It is meant to be scary. They've written it in such a way that it's scary. When Tennessee comes out with their defense, I guarantee you, they will make fun and poke holes of everything out of the case, and folks around here are going to say, see, I told you. We'll look at their defense against some of these things we talked about today when that comes out. We intend to be fair on that front, too. All right, folks, thanks for watching. See you next Sunday.